So once again, caught off guard by how quickly the end of the month has rolled around. Not only the end of the month, I feel like this year has just gone by so fast. I was sitting here earlier closing up a relatively busy project season, and then it's like, oh wait, the month closes out in 2 days, and we've got to get a video up. So as it goes, which has kind of been the theme of this entire season, here we are. So it's been just about 180 days since I started making these videos. We're also landing at just about the halfway point in the year. And the funny thing is, I tend to sit down here with a certain topic or idea in mind, and then life ends up taking its usual twists and turns, and a more pressing or relevant topic ends up emerging, and then it kind of just turns into, no, this is the thing that we actually need to be shooting right now. And I've got it all mapped out, and then God and the universe are like, no, actually, this is where we're going. And then you just sit there like, but then you realize, wait, no, this actually makes a lot more sense. And you've heard me say this on here a million times, right? This constant challenging of me setting up a certain structure, and then that certain structure immediately being challenged with the organic nature of life in ebb and flow. But that element of surprise is where faith comes in, right? Because if I had every little thing perfectly figured out, there wouldn't really be anything to trust in. And that's the beautiful thing about faith, right? It just kind of gently shows up at your doorstep and says, hey, it's okay to let go and trust the unknown. This is all going to work out. And I'm like slowly learning to fall in love with it for the first time. Like as I start to pull my hands off of trying to control every little aspect, things begin to become what they're supposed to become. And it's really, really interesting to watch because God steps in, as he always does, and takes me to places that are so much better than anything that I could have tried to architect on my own. Which brings me back to tonight, right? I'm here up at the office, wrapping up a few things, realizing I'm pivoting the topic of this video once again because life and because the nature of the narrative, which then turned into taking a moment to pause and reflect and honestly just smile, looking back at the past 180 days at this halfway mark of the year. And honestly, against the continual warning signs of my nervous system, there is so much good that has happened, and there is so much to be excited about moving forward. I've learned so much about myself, how I work, the architecture of my soul, and it's taken a lot of very difficult things to start bringing that into clarity, right? And honestly, I am so incredibly thankful at where the narrative is right now in this present moment. That's been another big thing, right? It gets very easy to look forward, to look backward, and a lot of the times there's just this calling to just be present in the now. And the really interesting thing about this all, right? The past 6 months, every pivot, every project, every canon event on this timeline, every relationship has actually boiled down to 3 simple, identifiable concepts: stay, receive, and abide. Stay is the tough one, right? That works directly against a nervous system that just wants to run. When there's unknown, you don't run, you stay. There's nothing to run away from, there's nothing to burn down, and there's nothing to even run towards right now. And I don't mean that in the sense of not having goals or not orienting myself towards important things, but it's more like to not be peeking into areas that I don't really have any business snooping in right now, right? This is the faith thing, and this is also that concept of being present with what's happening right here and right now. Receive is the big one. It goes against the performative self that says, well, if you're not outputting and if you're not running at 1,000,000 miles per hour, you don't have value. But that's just the thing, right? What if my own value was no longer tied to what I'm outputting or the version of myself that I'm architecting for the world to see? Because it's like, what if the people, the relationships, the things that I want to create, the ways in which I am loved by my creator could simply be mine to to receive as they are without packaging it up and turning it around into something that I have to utilize to prove my own self-worth. What am I proving? To who? To what audience? Life then becomes so much more freeing when you release yourself from having to prove to some sort of theoretical them. To be loved, to know that I am loved, and that for the first time, just being able to sit here and enjoy the beautiful things that have come into my life on their own volition. I feel like I can finally breathe again. And then from that comes abide. It's the summation of these two concepts. When you stay, you can then receive, and when stay and receive work together, abide kind of just beautifully manifests from both of those concepts into the now, into the present. And it's so full of incredible blessing. With your feet planted on the ground, you can receive without having to output. It negates having to prove. And then you start to see the shape of your life for what it really is, because you aren't anchored to everything else. You're just kind of here in the goodness of what's been given to you. And that's a very new concept for me. And as I step further and further into that, I feel the tenseness of everything starting to loosen up. And I find myself starting to, I think for the first time, live. Because yes, contrary to what your brain tells you, it's okay to enjoy the good things in life. It's okay to receive these without having to turn them around into something else. Because there's no longer anything to prove. And this is my favorite part about the entire thing. When you abide, the rewiring of your nervous system finally begins. And with my feet planted on the ground in this posture of stay, through this action of receive, I'm no longer being driven by fear, but I'm being pulled forward, grounded in these concepts, knowing that the story is being written exactly in the way that it needs to be written, and that I can rest, and that I can just be here. And I think this might be me actually being present for the first time ever. And it's a very weird and different and new feeling. It's very quiet. So we're finally just here in the now, I think living life in real time for the first time ever. It's so incredibly wild. So yeah, here's to 180 days. Here's to the halfway point of the year. I'm not fearful, but I'm excited because I've seen where we've been and I have such a beautiful feeling of where we're going. And it's gonna be really good.